Okay, great. We have a nice cozy group here. I'm so excited that all of you guys came. I'm gonna share my screen really quickly so we can see the presentation and
Mhm.
go from there.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much. We're super excited to have everyone here. My name is Emily, and this is Rebecca. We both founded an organization called Paper Brews together. And then we thought that this would be a really good platform just to talk about how youth can get involved in social entrepreneurship, because it's just been something that's been growing very rapidly in the past few years, and it's a really good opportunity for people to get involved in the community. So if you move on to the next slide. So this is just a general outline of how we're going to structure our presentation. So I want to go through a couple logistics first. So if you guys could, it would be good if you guys muted your mics unless you guys have a question, or you guys can just drop the questions in the chat. We want to make it this super conversational, so you guys are welcome to ask questions at any time. So we are going to make this interactive. We're going to be first doing a little presentation about what entrepreneurship is, what social entrepreneurship, and how students can get involved in social entrepreneurship. But then throughout this, we're putting in an activity that allows you to formulate your own ideas for a social venture, and then work with the group to do a little problem solving activity to really get a better idea of how to come up with an idea and how to create a solution for it. And at the end, we're going to try to do a little group picture. So if everyone could turn on the cameras towards the end, that would be really awesome. And the general goal of this is just for everyone to get a better understanding of what social entrepreneurship is, and particularly if you're a student, how you can leverage your skills as a student to create social change. So this is a little bit more about us. My name's Emily, and I'm currently a freshman at Stanford. I'm studying management sciences and engineering.
And I'm Rebecca. I go to Yale and I am double majoring in political science and history of art. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about our experience founding a nonprofit, but first we're going to talk about what entrepreneurship really means and what it looks like today.
Okay, so what really is entrepreneurship? You see this word getting thrown around a lot, especially in recent years with the development of Silicon Valley and all these big startups that you see coming up. But what I really want to do is help you guys get a better understanding of really the essence of entrepreneurship. So if you go to the next slide, we have. So I have a lot of pictures of a lot of different. You probably recognize all of these people. And what I want to do is to see what you guys really think entrepreneurship is right now. So I'm gonna go through each of them one by one, and maybe either you can, if you go onto your Zoom thing, you can see there's an option for like raising your hand. I just want to make this a little bit interactive, so you guys can chime in and see what you consider to be like entrepreneurship or whatnot. Because there's some obvious ones, of course. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they definitely fall into this entrepreneur category. But then also you have other people like Banksy or MLK or Kim Kardashian, or even like kids selling lemonade on the street. I just want to get other people's I just want to see what you guys think about whether you would consider these people to be entrepreneurs. You guys are welcome to just talk. You don't have to stay muted. If you guys want to add any input. All right, okay, so we can move on a little bit, but definitely, so from what we have seen so far and from the definitions of entrepreneurship that we have come to understand, like almost all of these people can be considered to be entrepreneurs just because they're creating something innovative. And on the next slide, if you go to the next slide.
Yeah, so in the last few decades, entrepreneurship, this term has really kind of skyrocketed. And it's in part because it hasn't been until maybe the 1980s and 1990s when this term really becomes very popular, because even the idea of starting something on your own, of creating your own venture, wasn't really considered even feasible until the late 1900s. And because of that, we wanted to see how we can kind of look at this new term and see how we fit into it, like in the 2000s, right now in 2020, how entrepreneurship has changed and what our role as youth is in that.
So let's look at what other people have defined entrepreneurship to be, because right now there's a lot of different definitions, but there's one that I particularly liked, which was by a professor at Harvard Business School, is that entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources controlled. And this really helps put into perspective the idea of entrepreneurship being a big risk and stepping outside of what you think is really possible in order to accomplish a goal that you have in mind. So the thing about entrepreneurship and what we think is really great about entrepreneurship is it really brings people together to solve a common goal, and then incorporates innovation and creative thinking in order to accomplish all these things. So what entrepreneurship really allows you to do is become really passionate about an idea, passionate enough so that that drive is enough to help you overcome any challenges that you might go through, because entrepreneurship obviously is a very hard journey. There's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be new problems coming up every single day. And the thing about being an entrepreneur is that you need to have enough dedication and passion for what you want to, for the problem, that you can go like overcome all these challenges. And I really like the second part about having entrepreneurship being beyond the giving pursuit of opportunity beyond resources controlled, because with this it really allows you to like go above and beyond when creating something. There's like a really interesting story that I want to share about this one group of people. It was a group of 4 college students, and they initially were just really bored over spring break and decided to make a bucket list of 100 things they wanted to do before they died. But for this bucket list, there were 2 requirements that they had on it. One was that they were going to not take into account any finances, and 2, all of these items were under the assumption that they had unlimited resources. And by setting all these super high goals, they had really crazy things on there. It was to start a TV show, write a best-selling book, meet Oprah, meet the president, and do all these super crazy things. And they were actually able to accomplish almost all of these items on their list just because they set their mind to it. And you guys can learn more about them if you looked up. This group is called The Buried Life. It's actually really interesting. So next, Rebecca's going to talk a little bit more about social entrepreneurship and how that differs from typical entrepreneurship and how it has developed over the years.
So lately, the idea of entrepreneurship in our day and age has kind of taken on its own notoriety, because sometimes when we think of entrepreneurship, it's the idea of this ultra capitalism and the corruption of money and the inability to follow an established path and an insistence on making it on your own. But we wanted to kind of turn that on its head and look at it through a different perspective, which is through social entrepreneurship. And the really great thing about social entrepreneurship is it's taking a lot of these qualities of entrepreneurship, so self-starting and creativity and ambition, and turning it towards something good, so towards making a huge social impact and a huge social change. You can use that same idea of self-starting to start a community-based project, or you can use the idea of creativity to really think outside of the box and do something that no company has done before. And that's why social entrepreneurship is really so special.
Okay, so to help you guys get a better understanding of what social entrepreneurship is, we want to show you a couple of prominent social ventures that you might have come across in your day-to-day lives. So a really big one that I'm sure most of you have heard of is Tom's. And although you might initially, when you look at this, you might not think it's even a social entrepreneurship company. I mean, it looks like it's just a shoe brand, right? However, the core of Tom's is that he founded this company with the purpose of raising money and raising resources to donate shoes for especially kids in underprivileged areas that are getting these horrible foot infections from walking to school on their bare feet. And by doing this through Tom's, he was able to create a sustainable model that allowed him to donate to all these people in a very efficient way. And then by doing this, he donated over 95 million pairs of shoes and provided hundreds of thousands of weeks of safe drinking water for these impoverished communities. And also another one that you might not have heard of, but also is a really interesting case study, is this eye care company called Aravind. So in India, a large cause of blindness, which is really preventable, is cataracts. And what Dr. Aravind did, Dr. V, as people call him, he created this really big network of hospitals to eradicate blindness from cataracts in India. And he set up this really interesting system where people could pay if they want to pay, and if they don't have the resources to pay, they just get high quality surgery for free. And he was able to build this system of trust among the patients and the doctors in order to make this entire thing successful. Like in the beginning, no one believed that his model was feasible, when against everything of what like a good business should be. However, because he focused so much on the mission and so much on the quality of the products, he was able to make this work. And right now it's one of the biggest cataract eye care centers in the world.
So now we wanted to transition to talking about kind of what we've done in our journey. So Emily and I started Paper Bridges. We started thinking about this project when when we were in high school in about 10th grade. It was always something that had been really important to us, and we wanted to see what can we do to do more? Like what can we do further than donating or spreading the word or doing like really small impact things. And that's when we started to think about there are some bigger steps that we can take. And we wanted to encourage you guys to also see, if you are students, that there's no limitations to what you can do. Because Emily and I started this nonprofit in the back of our chemistry class. Made hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of emails, did hours and hours of research trying to see what we could do to best solve this problem and how we could best use our skills to make an impact. And that's really what we did. Today, after years of work, we have about, I would say we've sent thousands of letters to over 15 orphanages in many countries around the world, and we have over 10 chapters, many in America, but also in Canada and India, all around the world too, who are really sharing in our mission and getting involved in what we believe in. And we're really making a difference just based on what 2 kids started in the back of our chemistry class. So we really wanted to share our story with you so that if you are a student and you have doubts about what you can do, or even if you're an adult and you're thinking about how can we get students involved, it's really important just to get that platform and to get that confidence to know that you can do it without maybe necessarily the resources that adults may have or the experience. It's really something that anyone can do.
Okay, so now we're gonna get to the fun part. So we want you guys to really have the opportunity to kind of brainstorm your own ideas about big social issues that you could tackle, potentially even like, so the purpose of this call, we want you guys to like get to know social entrepreneurship and potentially even find some people and start a social venture. So we're gonna put you guys into breakout groups of around 4 to 5 people. And then in these groups, we want you to first introduce yourselves, but then talk with each other and try to find a social problem that you think is feasible for you to solve. And some things to keep in mind when like thinking about what problems that you're solving is to make sure it's not a huge umbrella problem like climate change, global warming, or like poverty. You really want to find a thing that you are really passionate about and something really specific that you can start small with, and then in the future you guys can expand more. And then after talking, we're going to give you guys about 5 minutes. So after coming up with a problem together, we want one person to be a spokesperson for the group and just share with us afterwards with the group what your idea was. So I'm going to send you guys into the breakout rooms right now. Let me see options. I'm going to put you guys in environments. Okay. So you guys, I made the breakout rooms and I'm going to have you guys come back in around 5 minutes. Okay, I think I just saw just joined, but we're sending everyone's in a breakout room right now, brainstorming an idea for a social problem that they can solve. So I can send you into one of these rooms right now. Room number 3.
Oops, where did it
Okay,
go?
awesome. Is everyone's back? Okay, so I'm just gonna go through room by room. I broke you guys up into 4 breakout rooms. I just want each of you guys to have one person tell us what you came up with. So let's start with room number 1, and that's Dina, Katie, and Will.
Hi. So, one issue we discussed was the lack of clean water, and especially in third world countries around the world. And that was a problem that we thought could potentially have a solution in terms of social entrepreneurship. And Dina actually mentioned something really cool. She mentioned that she actually started a social enterprise in Ethiopia, and she can tell you something about that.
Oh yeah, Dina, I would love to hear what you did with your social venture.
Yeah, so hi. Basically, I did my master's at the IE School of Global and Public Affairs in Madrid. And then as part of the program, we went to Ethiopia And then after doing a feasibility study, and we had three options available of how to solve a water problem in one of the villages in the south of Ethiopia, we made a business plan for a local entrepreneur, for him to build a social enterprise to solve the problem. And basically the idea was to purify the water from the the rivers, and then deliver it with donkey carts to the houses, because the problem was that the families send the kids to walk 3 hours per day to the closest river to get water, and it's dirty anyway because they're using jerry cans. So that was the project that we were working on.
Wow, that's super awesome how you guys were able to come up with a solution to that's such a pressing issue like all around the world too. And I feel like that's also a model that could potentially be implemented in a lot of different places as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's super awesome to hear that. Okay, number 2, Alejandra, Carrie, Colleen, and Schmug.
Hi, this is Colleen. We were talking about a problem that we were thinking might be similar to what you addressed with paper bridges, but perhaps for helping refugees in camps educate their children. Somehow getting a program in touch so that we could support refugee families who are trying to educate, help them with educational materials or books or computers or things like that. It just seems so sad that they're sometimes unable to, they spend a long time in camps unable to educate their children. So, and another one that was brought up in Uganda was helping children who have to walk really far to school somehow get to schools easier, or make schools that are closer in proximity. So we had 2 ideas.
Okay, awesome. No, those are both very interesting, and they seem very something that you can definitely tackle through a social venture, because some of it I think is definitely not very well addressed by a lot of the big NGOs. Okay, so breakout room number 3, Didi, Ellie, and Umama. If one of you guys want to share.
Yes, we spend the bulk of the time introducing ourselves to each other, but we did realize that mental health is a common thread. Is that me? Hello? Okay. So, okay. So we decided to tackle the problem of lack of primary mental health care, especially for youth.
Yeah.
And it was more of the services that are available and inaccessible to them. So we wanted to engage the youth to be part of the problem, so that they could be part of the solution. But we never, we didn't get any far into the details of how that could happen.
Of course, that's really awesome. And also, like, this part's just coming up with the idea. We have more time later to actually come up with a solution for these problems that you guys are you guys came up with, which is super awesome. Also, one more thing I just thought of. So you guys are also free to drop your emails or social media in the chat in case you guys want to stay connected after this call, and if you guys want to like work together on any projects. So feel free to share contact information in there. Okay, and let's move on to the last breakout room with Milton, Rebecca, and Senja.
I think Becca wasn't able to join us or something happened. But anyway, Senja and I talked a lot about women empowerment, particularly in Nepal. Sandra is in the Nepali context. And we talked about some of the work that she's doing, and particularly about the use of homestays and creating enterprises for women to better have more kind of economic power and decision making, and also how that could also very well improve the lives of their children and their educational success. That's kind of where we ended. We didn't get to more details, but we were beginning on some ideating around kind of women empowerment and economic empowerment for women.
Okay, wow, yeah, no, that is super awesome. I loved hearing all of your ideas. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about, and now we're going to talk more about the next stages of actually how to make these ideas come into reality and how to actually implement these ideas. So if you go into so one thing that we really want to talk about was the difference between volunteering and social entrepreneurship, because especially in these days, more and more students around the world are getting involved in all these other volunteering opportunities. You have schools requiring it, you have people just doing it on their free time, and of course, volunteering is a really good cause. You're giving your time and resources to people in need. However, the thing about volunteering is that sometimes it's very much just you doing something that another bigger organization can like hands down to you, and you don't have as much insight into the actual impact that you personally are making, or you don't have that much initiative in saying like what issues you want to talk about. And this is where I think social entrepreneurship really comes in, because when you're starting a social venture, you're allowed to really you're exploring this one topic that you're really passionate about, and then you also have the opportunity to leverage your personal skills, your building leadership skills, teamwork skills, organizational skills in order to make this idea into a reality. So we do think that social entrepreneurship is such an important exercise, especially for young students, students of all ages really, to get more practice developing their personal and professional skills, but more importantly, helping create an even bigger impact in an issue that they are passionate about.
We're gonna get a little bit more into how to create change as a student. A lot of times students don't have the resources that an adult might have in terms not only of monetary resources, but also connections and experience. So we wanted to talk about the opportunities that students have using the limited resources that they have. And these include social media, grants, mentorship, and then volunteers and the community involvement. So first, a tool that a lot of students have that's really unique to our generation is social media literacy. The really great thing about social media is that it's free or low cost, and it's a really great marketing way to get your name out there and to get your cause out there at a low cost. We're not just even talking about social media, but taking advantage of the internet as a whole. So because we have the internet, we can create websites and put all of our content online and use email to reach a large group of people. And these are all really important tools that we have. Social media literacy is also really important in understanding which platforms to use for different uses. So for example, if you want to create video content, a YouTube channel would be a really great way to connect personally with people, because having a Facebook or a LinkedIn or an Instagram, posting on those might seem kind of impersonal because you never see how the organization interacts in real life, and you never see how everything is happening behind the scenes. Whereas with the YouTube channel, you really have a chance to explore what's actually happening. How are real lives being impacted? How are people that you can hear and see engaging with your organization? Another great thing is that you can use different media platforms for different demographics. For example, you might use Instagram to target a younger generation, and you might use Facebook to target an older generation. Or you might use LinkedIn to target a more business demographic or a more professional demographic. And these are all really great things to keep in mind when you're thinking about the differences between all these social media platforms. In terms of going through what type of information you want, you can use Twitter to keep your followers up to date in really short snippets. They might not have the time to read a newsletter every month or every week or so on and so forth, but using Twitter just to give a few sentences of updates every few days is a really great way to keep everyone involved and on board in a short time period. As teens, we're very well versed in the social media sphere, and that gives us a huge advantage as we become more and more dependent on the internet and everything becomes digitalized. We have those skills in place already, and that can be a really great asset. And lastly, it's a great tool to communicate internationally. So as Paper Bridges, our goal, our mission is to reach orphans internationally. And we really could not have done it any other way other than using the internet and social media, because before now there would have been no way to contact people across the world. But because we have these tools now, we take advantage of them in order to reach a really large base. And speaking of reaching a large base, I just wanted to give a note about storytelling. So when you're talking about your mission and your objective to people, you don't want to just use rational thought. So just giving a list of facts isn't as effective as appealing to someone's emotions, which you would do through giving personal anecdotes, through giving stories of people's lives and how this issue is impacting them personally. Because studies show that when we hear these kinds of stories, it activates the same part in our brain as if we were going through the same things ourselves. And because of that, it's a lot more effective to showcase the faces of the problem and showcase the people who are being affected by it, rather than just putting on a long list of facts and numbers and things that people might not connect personally with or be affected by. So a general form when you are presenting your ideas is to kind of go about it in a way where you're telling a story rather than presenting a project proposal. And you would want to do that by first presenting the problem, then the solutions that have been attempted in the past, why they failed, and then turning to you why you think that you can succeed, what you need. And you want to end, most importantly, on a call to action, because you don't want to present this huge problem and then just leave your listener going away confused, unsure about the situation, and afraid of what's going to happen. You want them to have a clear plan of what they can do to get involved, and a very, very clear prompt for them so that you can say, this is a solution that we have proposed and this is what you can do as a citizen in order to get involved and make a difference.
So something else that's very open to you guys, especially as students, is the prospect of finding mentorship and finding someone to kind of help you along your journey as a young entrepreneur. Because a lot of the times, especially with students and teenagers, we always think like, oh, like this is something I can do myself. I'll just like Google some things and I can figure it all out. But we really underestimate the importance of someone with more experience, someone who has gone through the same things we have, in order to, and how to find someone like that, so to help guide us through our process. Because when you do that, when you find someone who is just a couple steps ahead of you, who has been working in the field, who is trying to solve the same problem, they have a much better understanding of all the challenges that may come up, and then they could save you a lot of time, especially with things to do, things to avoid, and everything like that. Like even as Paper Bridges, like our group is still constantly reaching out to other nonprofits, other organizations for advice and mentorship about all these different issues we're tackling, because you really have to understand the entire landscape and everyone involved, and how you can use all of this to create the biggest impact possible. So there are a couple places where you can find mentors. So what we've noticed is that LinkedIn has been really helpful. I know a lot of students, especially in high school, don't have it yet, but it's a really good idea to get, just because there's a huge professional network that you can reach out to. And these mentors don't even have to be adults. They can be people just a couple years older than you, people who have done similar things as you. So really make sure you keep your mind open for the people who you could have as a mentor. And if you move on to the next slide. So one more thing that is available, especially to some students, is grants, because we know that as students starting a social venture sometimes is really hard to get enough funding to get it off the ground. And so something really interesting that we have found, what has been really helpful, is there's a lot of local schools, nonprofits, and governmental grants that give young entrepreneurs the opportunity to work on their own project. And you can find these by reaching out to schools in your community. There's a lot of nonprofits that either target groups that target a specific issue area, so like the environment or poverty or like education or anything like that. And then there's also nonprofits that help give grants, especially for youth entrepreneurs. So one that we found at, for Paper Bridges is called Peace First. I can drop the name in the chat, but this one has been really helpful because they offer you a $250 grant by you just tell them your idea and like your plan, and then they support you monetarily to help you achieve your goals.
And lastly, as a student, there's a huge network of students and volunteers that you can reach out to. Generally, adults already are kind of set in on their lives. They have a specific social sphere that they're already in, and it might be harder to network with a large group of people. But as students, you're constantly interacting on a daily basis, perhaps with hundreds of kids, not only through schools, but through clubs, extracurriculars, your outside commitments. And that's a really wonderful way to network and a really wonderful way to reach across borders and boundaries and get everyone possible involved. So because we do go to school and we know a lot of students and are the friends of our the students that are friends of our friends and friends of those friends, we have a really large network to reach out to. And by nature of being students ourselves, there's a really supportive environment for other students to come up, to take leadership, to learn on the job, rather than being intimidated by a lot of very professional and experienced people. You're really working in a more collaborative setting with fellow students to get as much done as you can and to make a really large impact. And another thing really unique to students and student volunteers is that they typically have more time to volunteer and contribute because they might not perhaps be as dedicated to a family or a job that they already have. And instead, they can really have that time to take risks, especially when you're young. You can make those risks that might seem inconceivable when you're older. And when you're younger, that's really how you get success, is by taking risks and doing things, not sure if you'll succeed, but doing them with grit and with determination until you do. And that's really why having this huge network of students and student volunteers is a really powerful tool that we should take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. So next we want to go through this process that was come up by the design school at Stanford, but basically it's this process called design thinking for you to really both formulate your idea and then to validate it to make sure that it's something the market needs, and then to eventually test it to see how it is received. So the basic steps is, first you need to get a really good understanding of the field that you're in. So let's say, like for us, for Paper Bridges, we're helping orphanages. So we need to empathize with all the different stakeholders involved. So we need to see from the perspectives of orphanages, we need to see things from the perspective of these big orphanage help NGOs. We need to see these things from the perspective of the orphans. So this part of it, empathizing, really involves a lot of research and calling and talking to people. And really don't hesitate to reach out and cold call and try to get in touch with a lot of these big organizations, because you'll be surprised by how receptive they are to like helping someone out. And additionally, so after you do that, you want to really define the specific problem that you want to solve, and then start coming up with ideas. Get in a group, brainstorm, think of all the crazy out of the box ideas, like without too much regard to like your current like monetary or like connections. And this really allows you to come up with the creative solutions to approach something in an innovative way. And after coming up with this idea, start coming up with prototypes, see how you can actually implement this idea, and finally you should test it out. So for us, for Paper Bridges, we decided to send out these letters to one orphanage first and see how it's received. And after getting validation from that, after seeing that the orphanages were really happy to receive the letters, they want to write back to us, they wanted to talk to the people writing the letters, we realized that this was a system that could work and has potentially a really positive impact on the orphans' mental health, which is why we are continuing to do this to this day. So this is a process that you should always keep in mind, and is really helpful for helping you really come up and solidify an idea. So next, we want you guys to come up with an elevator pitch for a solution to a problem that you guys talked about in your groups earlier. And what an elevator pitch is really just a 60-second, really brief overview that you're going to give someone who maybe is curious about your project. And the reason it's so short because you only have a very short amount of time to get their attention and to convey why your solution is the best way to solve this. So Rebecca's going to go a little bit more into the structure of how to do an elevator pitch.
Yeah, so obviously we don't expect you to have a solution already based on this problem that you just came up with half an hour ago, but we want you to think through possible solutions, really think outside of the box and just come up with an idea. It doesn't have to be a fully fleshed out solution, but come up with an idea that you think might work and might target this issue. And first, what you want to do is you want to define the problem clearly. Say, what is it that we need to address right now? And then say why your solution is best and why you are in a unique position to solve the solution. Because anyone off the street can just say, oh, I want to do this. But why do you have the unique skill set and resources to be able to solve this problem? And that's what you want to all put into this little short pitch that you're giving.
Okay, so we're going to send you guys back into your breakout rooms again. And if you just joined after, or we're just going to assign you to one of these 4 breakout rooms that we have right now. So you guys are going to get into the same groups, come up with a solution to problem, and then assign one person to give a quick 60-second pitch of what the problem is, your solution, and how it's going to be implemented. And just keep in mind what we said earlier about the pitches. So I'm going to open up the rooms once again, and you guys are I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to discuss, and I'll call you guys back in a bit. Okay, I'm gonna close the rooms and then everyone has 60 seconds to come back here.
Okay. Did you close the rooms?
Yeah. They're gonna come back in like 10 seconds. Because it gives them 60 seconds to come back, like a warning.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, is everyone back? Awesome. Okay, so let's just go through the rooms again like last time, one by one, and you guys can do your little 1-minute pitch about what your idea and solution was. So let's start with breakout room one again with Amy, Central, DeCabio, Gina, and Katie.
Yeah, hi there. Well, I'm Central de Cambio, but that's just my username of the company. My name is Maria. So in the room one, we were talking about water scarcity, and well, the problem is that many people don't have access to clean water, and there are many filters in the world, but they are kind of expensive, and it's not possible or easy to access to them. So we were talking that we can work on that, like provide a filter that is cheaper and to work in the distribution channels to make it easier for people that is suffering from water scarcity, and talking about like why we are going to solve this problem, because we have some people in the room had experience in working on these topics, so that's mainly what we were talking about.
Okay, awesome. That sounds really great. Breakout room number 3, the people on 2 unfortunately had to leave early. But Didi and Umama?
Hi. I think I'll go with the pitch. So this is Umama from Pakistan, and my team member Didi and we came up with this idea of Youth Corp Hangout. Our basic problem is lack of access of primary mental health care for young people. So mental health is a huge issue, and when we were framing the problem, we understood that there is a huge stigma attached to young people getting access to mental health. So we want to solve this problem by creating an online space which will facilitate peer-to-peer discussion, and we will have this anonymity aspect as well, that if somebody is having some more serious issues, they don't have to share everything publicly, and they don't even have to disclose their name, but they will be kept in a group very similar to what we are in right now, and there will be a moderator who will be channeling those discussions. So we were thinking about along those lines, and yeah, this is our solution that we want to
Okay, awesome.
and we think that our capabilities are very aligned as well, since Didi has a very rich background in health. She's a healthcare professional and she works for kids with mental health. So that is one thing. And I think that along the business lines and along the business aspect, I can help her with this. So yeah, this is why we are fully equipped to deal with this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the last breakout room?
I think that was Will and I. So we talked about we talked about the cocoa making process, and particularly in some of the places in which cocoa and coffee is produced. There's a huge issue with deforestation and also inequitable labor practices of hiring child labor and under paying people. And so we kind of explore some potential ideas around that, particularly creating some sort of sustainable, making this up on the fly, co-op of sorts, where individuals can continue to plant and grow their own food, but also have a sustainable way to bring those foods to market. And I think that we're poised to do this well because Will is a farmer and a chef, and so he has expertise in farming and sustainable agriculture and also culinary skills. And my background is in nonprofit management, so I think that we both could do well to create this sort of solution and also build community around that co-op of sorts.
Awesome. That sounds really, really interesting. It was so great hearing everyone's ideas, and we hope that maybe in the future you guys could work together on maybe solving some of these really big issues. I know everyone dropped their contact information in the chat, so if you guys need to reach out to anyone, you can contact them there. Me and Rebecca will show you guys our contact information at the very end. But first, Becca's gonna do a couple takeaways from our presentation.
Yeah, so I know that we're going just like 1 or 2 minutes over, but I think these are like just 5 things we want to leave you with that are super important to take away from our presentation today. And number 1 is to understand your objective. Really understand not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. What is your motivation behind it? Because if you're not going to have passion or motivation, you won't have the dedication to continue pursuing what you started. So that's really important, is to understand your objective. Second is to research. It is so important, and Emily and I spent hours and hours researching not just researching the problem, but research pre-existing solutions, because you don't want to show up and solve a problem that already has been solved or address a problem that doesn't even exist. So you want to research not just the problem itself, but what solutions have already been implemented and how can you build off of those solutions and kind of fill in the holes there. You want to ask for advice, not just from your peers, but also from mentors, from community resources. These are all things that are really great for you to take advantage of. And then don't underestimate your worth, especially if you're young. Never, never, never underestimate the ability that you have to bring your own skills to the table, your creativity, your risk-taking, your ambition. These are all important things that you don't want to forget about when you're bringing your skill set to the table. These are things that bring so much worth and can really, really make a nonprofit or a social initiative really successful. And then lastly, do something you love and have fun. This is, we know, like Emily and I know that this can be a really stressful process. We have been doing this for 4 years now, and there has been times where it just feels like we should give up, like we aren't doing anything, we're not breaking through, and we're just hitting all these barriers. But every single time we get a box full of letters from kids around the country being sent to orphanages, or every time we get responses from orphanages and a box full of letters from them with their kids responding to the letters that were sent to them, it is so heartwarming and so incredible, like that experience. And that's just what you want to keep your eye on, the experience of succeeding and making an impact and having fun along the way. So what we want to leave you with is what's on your bucket list. What is something that you could do if you forgot about resources and barriers and just set your mind to it? What is your bucket list and what can you achieve? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. And also, we're going to go to the next page so you guys can, that's our contact information for me, Rebecca, and just Paper Bridges. If you guys want to reach out to us or have any questions or want help with anything, we would be more than happy to talk. Yeah, so we'll open up the floor for questions right now if anyone has any. I know we're a little bit over, so feel free to leave if you're busy.
I have a question.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so there is usually a problem that I think many of the people can relate to, but it was a problem that I encountered. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, sometimes we get confused that whether it should be, can it be more business-like, or should it be solely a nonprofit, or should we go to a more hybrid sort of model? So how do you think we can navigate that? Like, maybe if we start generating money at some point, maybe we'll be moving more
I'm
towards
attending
the
one of the
business
sessions
model
online
type.
from the Skoll thing, and Zara was sending me the emails.
Oh.
So I'm not sure if she sent me a test email or the real one at the end after all the edits. So that's why I'm asking. Anyway, you should receive it any second.
Oh yeah, so that is my question. Like, how do we navigate that? Like, what sort of business model do we choose, and how do we choose which one is better at which point?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So from our understanding, there's a really large range of things that count as like a social venture. You have one end being the pure just nonprofits, which is what we are. But then there's also on the other end, you have corporations like Tom's, which make millions upon millions of dollars, but they're funneling that money back into the organization to create that positive impact. So the only thing you really have to have when you're a social venture is to have a socially minded goal at the end that you're trying to aim for. For a lot of these models, what we really want to encourage is taking some of these business aspects and taking account, like, how do we make this business sustainable? How do we keep this running in the long term if we can't get like this big grant or we can't get these constant donations? And keep all of that in mind when setting up your social venture, just to, by incorporating a lot of these business elements into creating social impact, you're able to create an even bigger impact, because you're straying away from the big model of like relying on these big government and like nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you also,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Yeah, does anyone have any other questions? Okay, awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining this little workshop. We're super happy to host it, and we hope that you guys will do some social. I hope you guys learned a lot about social entrepreneurship, and will learn more about, or will go on to do something maybe cool like down the road in the future. So thank you guys, and of course, feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions like later down the road. Yeah, bye guys.
If there's any questions that are more personal and you want to hang back and ask us, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that this chat was being recorded. Will it be available, or this workshop will be available later on somewhere?
We're actually not sure about that right now, but if you do want a copy of it, we'll be happy to just email us and we'll be happy to send you the recording so you can go over it. But yeah, everyone can feel free to leave right now if you want. If anyone has, yeah, like Rebecca said, more personal questions, you guys can hang back and we can talk.
Yeah, unfortunately missed the first 10 minutes. I didn't catch, were you guys students? Are you guys students currently at Stanford or somewhere else?
Yeah. So Emily and I are students in college right now. Emily goes to Stanford and I go to Yale. We are currently first years, and I'm majoring in political science and history of art. And Emily?
Yeah, I'm majoring in management sciences and engineering. Like the reason we really wanted to do this workshop is, so we started this organization Paper Bridges in high school, and we really want to encourage students to know that they can really like use their skills and they are in a position where they can create like positive social change. And this like goes on for like high school and college as well. So we just thought it was a really important thing to talk about.
Yeah. As students, we weren't really encouraged or believed in, I guess, and we just wanted to change a little bit of that mindset that students can't really make a big impact, because really I think anyone can make an impact, especially with social media today, which is the great equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was a really good thought that you had on creating a sustainable motto. I didn't realize this was necessarily a talk just for like college students. I'm actually a bit much more older, but I feel like that's a real issue that a lot of nonprofits are trying to face. And I think when building a kind of social venture, that's actually a really important thing to be thinking about. So I thought that was a really great thought you had.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. Oh yes, Simon, you said you had a question?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I have a question. And I'm Simon. I'm working with Handicap International in Kenya. And, I have a question on social entrepreneurship, on especially towards the youth with disability. What are kind of inclusive strategies that we should focus on when we are working with the youth with disabilities, especially in inclusive development? Thank you.
That's a really good question. When we're thinking about inclusivity, I think a lot of it is just being open-minded, and giving like everyone an equal opportunity to like share their own thoughts and experiences. And what we really like about our platform is that we like really attempt to be inclusive, and we allow anyone to contribute what they want, and we send our letters basically to everywhere in the world. And with the help of a lot of these orphanage heads, who kind of have more personal relationships with the orphans themselves, they're able to translate the thoughts of their orphans onto paper for us, or even give them the opportunity to write their own letters back to us. So that's a really important point about being aware of people that you're reaching out to and aware of the situations that they're in, and trying to be inclusive and giving everyone like an equal standing.
Well, yeah, so thank you everyone for joining this call. And I think I'm just gonna end it now, but feel free to email us with any other questions you may have. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of this World Forum seminar. I'm sure there's a lot of really great events for everyone.